Okay, so I'm going to take the same step over here. I'm going to divide everything by the number in front of x squared. That's going to give me x squared plus whatever b divided by a is times x plus whatever c divided by a is, and 0 divided by a is going to be 0. All right, now, what's the first step when we complete the square? Isn't it to get everything with an x without an x on the other side of the equals? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 1/3 to both sides, and that's going to give me x squared minus 5/3 x, and I'm going to leave a space, equals 1/3. Over here, let's do the same thing algebraically. I'm going to cancel out whatever this is, and I'm going to bring everything else down. I'm going to have x squared plus b over ax, leave a space, equals negative c over a. Okay? All right. Now, what's the number I should be looking at next? There's a number I'm supposed to divide by 2. Which number on the left here should I be looking at to divide by 2? Hello, are we here?
Yes.
Okay. Which is the number I'm supposed to divide by 2?
3.
It's the number in front of x, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to do that. Over here, I'm going to say to myself, negative 5/3 divided by 2. All right? And when we take a fraction and divide by 2, we really want to multiply by 1/2. And that gives me negative 5/6. I'm going to circle that because that's the number that I'm going to use in my factoring. All right? But first, I'm going to square that number, negative 5/6 squared, and when you square a fraction, you square the top and you square the bottom. Negative 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36. So I'm going to add 25 over 36 to this side, and I'm going to add 25 over 36 to this side. All right, let's take the same steps over here. The number in front of x is b over a, and I want to divide by 2. When I divide a fraction by 2, it's really the same as multiplying by, it's the same as multiplying by 1/2. And I get b times 1 on top, a times 2 on the bottom. All right, look what happened over here. When I divided by 2, I really just multiplied the bottom by 2. Same thing over here. So this is going to turn into b over 2a. And I'm going to circle that because I'm going to use that in my next step. But first, I'm going to square that number. So b over 2a squared gives me b squared, and 2 squared is 4, and a squared is a squared. I'm going to add b squared over 4a squared to both sides. I know this looks ugly, but the importance of this is by doing this with just letters, We're never going to have to do it with numbers again. We're going to have a formula when we're done with this, and we're almost there. All right, now, this number tells me what goes in the brackets when I factor it. All right, just to prove that this works for a minute, all right, this stuff here, if I were to factor it, it's x minus 5/6 times x minus 5/6. And I'm just going to prove for a minute that this works, and then I'm going to erase this. But if I have x and negative 5/6 and x and negative 5/6, and I make a little box here, x times x is x squared, x times negative 5/6 is negative 5/6, x. This is negative 5/6x. And negative 5/6 times negative 5/6 is 25/36. And when I add all this together, negative 5/6 plus negative 5/6 is negative 10/6, which is negative 5/3. So I get negative 5/3 x plus 25/36. So all I'm doing is just showing you that this is the same as this. All right? So let me erase this now, make some room. So anyways, we don't write it out twice. We write it out once with brackets. We write x minus 5/6 squared. You having internet troubles today, Kayla? All right, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. This is the magic number. This is the number that makes my factoring work. So on this side, I'm going to have x plus b over 2a squared. Now, on the left side, I need to add these two fractions, but I need a common denominator. So I need to turn a 3 into a 36. I'm going to multiply by 12 top and bottom. So that's going to give me 12/36 plus 25/36, and that's 37/36. All right.
Sir, are you recording this?
I am recording this, yes. Okay. All right, now on the right side, I have to get these two denominators the same. Well, this one's missing a 4, and it needs another a. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4a. So now I have a common denominator. So what I really have is I have negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared. Now I have a common denominator. I can make them into one fraction. And I'm going to put the b squared first. So it's going to be b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. And again, this looks ugly, but when we're done, we're going to have a one-shot formula that will save us from doing all this work when I want to solve a tricky problem by completing the square. All right, we're 2 steps away from being done. Next thing we do is we take the square root of both sides. I take the square root of the left side and the square root of the right side. And the square root cancels out the square, so I just get x minus 5/6. Does the square root of 37 come out to a nice answer? Kayla, does the square root of 37 come out to a nice answer? Hello? Kayla, are you there?
Oh, Kayla.
Olivia, does the square root of 37 come out to a nice answer?
No.
No, it does not. It's 6 point something. So what do we do when that happens? We just call it plus or minus square root of 37. How about the square root of 36? Does that come out to a nice answer? Okay, Kayla, thank you. Hey, Stephanie, do you know what's the square root of 36? Hey, Stephanie, do you know what's the square root of 36? Hey, Stephanie, are you there today? What is the square root of 36? Do you know?
Wait, let me check.
What number times itself gives us 36?
Six.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the bottom comes out nice, so no square root needed on the bottom. Let's do the same thing over here. I take the square root of the left side, square root of the left side, and the square root of the right side. On the left side, the square root cancels out the square, and I just get x plus b over 2a. On the right side, b squared minus 4ac may or may not have a nice square root. But the bottom does. What times itself equals 4a squared? 2a times itself equals 4a squared. All right? And now we're done. All I have left to do is to bring this over and make it positive. X equals positive 5 over 6 plus or minus the square root of 37 over 6. And since we have a common denominator, we can write that like this. 5 plus or minus the square root of 37 over 6. It's really two answers. It's 5/6 plus the square root of 37 over 6 and 5 minus the square root of 37 over 6. Over here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring this over and make it negative. Negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Whoop. My pen is doing weird things. And because I have a common denominator, I can combine those into one fraction. 2a on the bottom, negative b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And this is probably the second most important formula, or possibly even the most important formula you learn in high school math. The Pythagorean theorem is right up there, and this is called the quadratic formula. All right? And what's so powerful about algebra is, if you don't have algebra, every time you've got a different problem, you've got to plug different numbers in and do the problem, all these steps, time and time again. If you just solve this problem once, algebraically, with letters, any number times x squared plus any number times x plus any other number equals 0, well, we just showed, here's the answer. All right, so this is one of the most important formulas you will learn in high school math, and it's called the quadratic formula. And it comes from completing the square. It comes from all the steps in the completing the square process turned into one formula. And it says, if ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then you can always solve it. X will always equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, and if we were in school, I would definitely have you memorize this formula. It's something, if you plan to go on to higher math, you should memorize this formula. All right, online, there's really no way I can know if you really memorized it or not, so I'm not going to do that, but it's something you should try to commit to memory if you plan on taking higher math courses. All right, so we have got